Hello, everybody. Good Monday morning. I am Angie Callen, and this is the No More Mondays podcast, where we believe you can have a thriving career or business and an amazing life. And my job is to bring you people who not only prove that fact, but have amazing resources and inspiring stories to help you live and work more authentically. So, my question for you to kick off this week is: have you found yourself in a situation where things just aren't going right? They're not going in the direction you anticipated. Something feels off. The alignment that was once there just no longer exists, and you want more. You better be saying yes, because we've all been there. So the real question is, do you lean into that voice and that intuition, or do you ignore it and just carry on frustrated and defeated? Hold that thought while I introduce you to Adam McChesney. Adam is the founder of Builders of Authority, where he helps motivated, future-thinking entrepreneurs take action and tap into their full potential so they don't feel frustrated. And he is awesome at helping build authority authentically. He also knows what it's like to face business crossroads and know that there's more out there, but have to step out of the comfort zone to find it. And I'm excited for y'all to hear more and be inspired by his story today. So Adam, welcome to No More Mondays.
Angie, thanks for having me. I'm super blessed to be here and excited for this conversation.
Well, and the little backstory, there's kind of a theme here for those of you that tune in regularly, is Adam and I met at a little event this fall. We can just say it's called The Thing. And these conversations have been some of my very favorite I've had because that event just tends to breed amazing people, apparently. And Adam and I shared the stage, which was fabulous. And I was really taken aback and very inspired by how vulnerable Adam was willing to be as he talked through some tough decisions he's faced as a business owner and entrepreneur over the year, and also how he worked through them. So Adam, not to start it off on the what went wrong foot, but we all know it's good for people out there to hear you don't die from failure. So tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that have brought you here today and what you learned from them.
Yeah, so without boring everybody with all of the details, essentially I was in medical device sales for 5 years. I decided in 2018 to type into online on my computer how to make money online, because I was sick of working in corporate America. And I came across an ad that taught me how to build websites and basically build digital real estate for myself. So built 200 websites as kind of a side hustle, made no money with it, and thought it'd be a good idea in July of 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, to just go all in on it. Right. So end of our fiscal year, June 30th, July 1st, I put my 2 weeks in. And so we can probably talk about my whole journey a little bit later, but some things I learned from that. But I went all in on that. And the next thing I knew, I started to grow my business through personal branding, which is a lot of what I teach entrepreneurs. And I grew my agency from 0 to 7 figures in 15 months. And in that process, I became a franchisee of a digital marketing agency because I realized I was really good at sales in building business. But if I were going to sell 20 new clients a month, I couldn't handle the processes and the systems. I didn't want to. I didn't handle the hiring and the firing and all of those things. So it was a very incredible opportunity for me to do that. And so I became a franchisee at this digital marketing agency, then grew to about 2.5 million. And I was really the only, I'm not going to say the only, but there was 26 of us. And I was the only one that grew over $1 million. And I was at 2.5 million. I was the only one that was really profiting a lot of money. And all of a sudden people started to leave and get out of it. And it started to get a little bit chaotic. So essentially I became a partner at the entire business in June of 2023. So I turned over my agency. I also put cash injection into the new formed business, brought all my clients, all my team members, and was kind of sold on this bigger picture, thing. And so I was getting ready to have our firstborn child, Murphy, in September. And so I just said, hey, my whole goal with why I went out on my own to begin with was I wanted the freedom to work when I want to, where I want to, with who I want to, and how I want to, and be able to obviously make the money I want to. But I realized like I had just built this business around my personal brand, which was great, but it was kind of this roller coaster that I was on that I didn't have control of. And so I thought by basically having partners and pivoting and doing all this stuff that when I was going to become a father, it was going to be the right thing. Well, I did that and pretty much everything like went downhill almost immediately. And so again, won't get into all the details, but all of a sudden I'm sitting there in January of 2024, like, oh my gosh, this is not what I was told it was going to be. And I don't want to do this anymore because I was the business, even though I wasn't in charge. And so I was a VP of the company. I had ownership, but I had built this Builders of Authority company as kind of a side hustle in November of 2023, where I was now teaching people how I grew my digital marketing agency with personal branding. So I have the agency that's like my main thing. And I said, hey, eventually it would be cool to go full time and do this on my own again. And then I ended up just, hey, I can't do this. I can't sleep at night. There's a lot of issues and people just know the business is me. So I said to my partners, I said, hey, I'm out. Long story short, like I wanted to do a transition. I ended up getting fired and dropped like, you know, a bad habit. And it was absolute chaos last year. So lawsuit, all the crazy stuff, ended up getting out of it all. And coming out on the other end and restarting an agency alongside with our coaching program that's kind of started Builders of Authority. But the agency is the thing that's really growing right now. They're both growing, but yeah, it was 2024 is a year that I will never forget, but for a lot of the wrong reasons.
Bye-bye. So what I think is funny there is to go back to the beginning. We have all typed how to make money online into the internet. We have all done it. Some of us on multiple occasions. Yeah. And most of us who like entrepreneurship have also had a side hustle that makes us no money. But really what I think is interesting is thinking that there was a way you needed to be in business for the stability of like a growing family versus the trade-offs that you sometimes have to make in order to do that in your world wasn't really going to jive. And so, you know, I want to remind everybody that like everything was tied up in that partnership, right? The old portfolio, the old business all went into that. And you kind of like, I mean, for lack of a better term, walked away with nothing but a new business to start, right?
Yeah, pretty much. No help. I get dropped from health. Dropped from health benefits with a couple of days notice as a type 1 diabetic and a 6-month-old is not fun.
So this is, and the reason I wanted to go here and just be like, okay, we're going to start with the what went wrong is because I really struggle with how failure averse we have become in society. And while we don't walk into these things going, yeah, I'm going to let this be the dumpster fire I think it can be, we can still come out of it. I don't want to say unscathed. This is the scathes heal. And I don't go into super detail either, but you know, bankruptcy, lawsuit in business, like been there with you. And it is some of the most mentally challenging, emotionally rocking stuff you can go through, not only because of what it does to your, you know, financial stability, but just what it does to your kind of your ego and your sense of autonomy as an entrepreneur. And so where I want to go next is the fact that because you don't die from failure, you typically learn from it. And I, you know, in some of our other conversations picked up on a little bit of the of maybe that all of this was a training ground to help you get to where you are now, which feels like where it's supposed to be. So tell me more about the transition into Builders of Authority and how that dumpster fire helped this become the success that it is so quickly.
Yeah. So I'll go back to even like when I ended up kind of like realizing that I had like made the bad decision, right? Because I had a $2.5 million business that the month before I merged everything in, we profited $50,000. So like it was a well-oiled machine that again, on paper, I was proposed something that was not well-oiled, but it was proposed well oiled. So I'm sitting there, almost 3 years removed from being in medical sales. So in 3 years, I built a $2.5 million business that's performing very, very well. And it was kind of that moment where you start to go to these events and you get inside of these ecosystems, and everybody's like, well, you hear all these people speaking from stage. Well, my story is I went to jail and went through 2 divorces and all these other things, and I had rock bottom and all this stuff. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, do you have to hit rock bottom in order to like have this great story? And so in my mind, I was kind of almost like, when is this going to happen? And so I look back
You
and
had
it's
a
like,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
yeah. And I was like, oh,
yes,
well,
and you,
I was,
you
yeah,
made sure.
I was literally not like, I was literally scared of continuing to run the business on my own, thinking I needed other people, because other people were like, oh, Adam, like you're only good at this thing over here. You need us and all these other things. And so I was scared of what ended up happening, but for all of the wrong reasons, because I self-inflicted that thing. So I had to, go to my wife and basically say like, hey, I made this big F up mistake. And everybody, as they saw it playing out, were like, Adam, we told you not to do that. And I went and did it literally anyway. So I want to preface it by saying like, you don't have to hit rock bottom or go through what I went through in order to get on the other side. And so many people think that, and that was a massive lesson that I learned. But what it did do, and where the silver lining is again, when I left, everybody at that company was like, oh my God, Adam, like you can't do this and you're going to like regret this and all those other things. And I was like, I know what you don't know. And you're not willing to admit that like I played a big role in it. This isn't my ego. This is what people are using with their money to tell a different story. Because I said, hey, when I leave, employees are going to start being like, what the heck? Like Adam's a pretty level-headed person. He has integrity. He has core values. He has all the things, because we've seen the track record. Clients, referral partners are going to freak out. And they were like, no, that's not going to happen. Literally, as people started, I mean, it was like, and I still get messages this day of people finding out that having no idea because they weren't told, right? So like, it's been almost a year now. So all of those things set me up to really go through, again, what was essentially rock bottom of having a $2.5 million business to almost having no money in the bank account, to then having to like continue paying for all the stuff. So this office here, I had a 3-year lease that was transferred over to them that they then transferred back to me. My executive assistant that I was paying for. I mean, there was just crazy amount of expenses that got thrown back on me. And some of it was like legally binding with this office that I couldn't get out of, even though I tried to. Other things were more just like deals that Adam did sign that I had to continue because I would rather find a way to make it work than go back on my word or go back on my contract. Like that's what was most important to me. And so I went through a season where it was struggle after struggle after struggle, which built my confidence up to say, Adam, when you're going to be able to go and relaunch this thing, you're going to have everything that you needed to get to that other side. Because from March, when this happened, to October, as the lawsuit was going on and all those things, we just kept getting like struggle along. I still had a non-compete. So I wasn't even able to go make money with the thing that built me all of that stuff, even though they had my thing. So I was coaching people in a group environment and doing some stuff and things like that with around personal branding. But when I went and had the ability to go start doing it again in October, I knew what I wanted because I knew what I didn't want. I had left. So it kind of gave me the confidence of being like, okay, you've made the right move.
Well, so hello, fellow rock bottom story. So even though I agree that you don't need to get there, somehow we're all really good at going there in the entrepreneurial world in order to then come back better, stronger, and more informed. And so my question around that is, do you think that let's say the rock bottom really helped you discover what it meant to do business authentically and with integrity and aligned with your values in a way that you maybe would not have seen without that experience?
Oh, 1000%. Like, and I think where the lines got blurry for me is I had been surrounding myself, whether it was at that company or because of all those relationships, of a blurred vision of what that actually meant. So you see those people talk on social media, oh, I have core values, or I believe in my faith, and all these different things. And then you hear from somebody like who they really are, or you see it, or you get burned by them, and you're like, wow, okay. Like, a lot of entrepreneurship is in these events and things like that. A lot of it is just like show.
It is a
And
smoke
so
screen.
it's a smoke screen, right? To go sell something that could likely be a scam if it isn't already a scam. And so it just made me realize, like, okay, I don't need to be tied up in all of this stuff to get what I want out of it. I know how to build a good business, already proven that. And I don't need partners or all of these things that I thought I needed in order to do what I want, because I was lacking self-confidence.
And the let's call it the failure stuff isn't failure, it's learning and conditioning. I even think is a good thing to think about, because it changes the threshold of, like, let's say pain and what we think is hard, right? Your skin actually gets thicker. And through this, here's the conclusion, or let's say I'll pull it all together. I feel like you really figured out who your personal brand is in order to help others with theirs, which is now where Adam and my world collides, because we both love the word authenticity. And what I love is Adam's website literally says what he does is help people stop trying to be everyone else and start taking action so they can separate themselves. Music to my ears. So tell me more about that, as we kind of say your story roots you in your ability to do that. Why is it so important that we operate that way? And talk to me more about, like, how you're working in that space now.
Yeah. So I go in all the way back to medical device sales. The first company that I worked at was a very small company here in St. Louis, and they had only had a sales team for 4 or 5 years, but I had an 18 state territory. And so I had 18 states. And so with that, I was literally gone 75% of the year, traveling by plane on the East Coast most of the time. And
so, like, half the country. Yeah.
Literally. I mean, insane. Well, on the East Coast, right? A lot of those states are so small. So it's like I could hit Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Connecticut, and
Rhode Island on your way.
Literally all in there. So it was like, whatever. But I went to Boston like 75% of those times, because that was kind of the main hub. So I was selling chemicals and reagents to life science labs and institutions on medical campuses and to biopharmaceutical companies. But I would literally go, and so we were selling all these different product lines, and I would literally go to Harvard Medical School, for example. And my competitors sometimes would have 3 or 4 sales reps on Harvard Medical School's campus. Whereas I was the only person from my company that had Harvard, plus all of that other stuff.
All the other states. Yeah. And all the other, I mean, in case you don't know, New England is a hotbed of medical advancement and technology. I used to live in Boston. So I'm sitting here going, well, yeah, this was not a small job.
Insane. So that's really where I had the sales skill set before that from college, doing different jobs and internships. But I really cut my teeth there for about 18 months doing that, because I had to maximize my time while I was there. And I had to build relationships at a very, very high level, because again, they weren't going to see me for another month, most likely. And they were going to see that other person and that other company 4 or 5 times. So I grew my territory. I was the number 1 sales rep in every category of like the 7 or 8 of us that were there, and literally crushed it, because the person before, it was all about like, hey, I'm just going to go there and like try to like pass out flyers and do some other stuff. Whereas I was like so focused on how can I find this competitive edge? Well, then I get on at a company called ResMed, who is like the manufacturer for CPAP equipment. So in the small company, people, yes, they were buying our company's product, but they were really buying Adam. When I went to ResMed, it was like this aha moment that ResMed already had this massive brand where it was like, it didn't matter if it was Adam, the rep before me, the rep after me, he was only there for 3.5 years. They're going to still buy ResMed.
They're buying a brand, they're buying a brand and a product, and not from a human at this scale. Yeah,
exactly. So while I was successful there, it had to do with my work ethic, but it honestly more had to do with how awesome the product and the company and technology was. So I then go out full time, July 2020, thinking I'm so good at sales. I know how to build websites. I go do that. My first month, I sell 0 digital marketing clients. So I just leave this $200,000 a year plus job, the benefits, the security. 6 weeks before, I bought our forever dream home, like all the craziest stuff. Like I literally
You're really
did
good
that.
at timing things,
Yeah.
Adam.
Oh, yeah. It's perfect. Yeah. Perfect. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I got to figure something out, because in digital marketing, there's hundreds of thousands of options to get what it is that I do. So I went from having basically one competitor and being the leader in the market with CPAP stuff to being literally a tiny little fish in the freaking ocean. So I stumbled across this mastermind group that I'm still in to this day that kind of taught me the idea of what personal branding was, amongst many other things, basically using your Adam and Angie social media channels to grow your business. So I kind of literally for the last almost 5 years now, just started consistently posting on Facebook, added in LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all this stuff. About 90% of my leads come from Facebook. And I started doing it. And it took me about 90 days of consistency. But with that, I signed up my first client. And my first client, he stayed with me for 3 years, ended up leaving because he didn't like the agency that I was previously a partner at. Well, funny enough, last week, he found out that I was no longer there. He's re-signing back up with me now after trying to find other agencies that it just didn't work out with. So that was my first client that ever came from it. And so what I realized is that I had 2 different, now 3 different agencies. That I had my own agency, I had the partner agency, and now I have Builders of Authority. People have been following Adam. They don't care the agency name. They don't care all that stuff. They're with Adam, right? And that's a good and a bad thing, right? Because again, people trust Adam. That's a lot to hang your hat on and all that stuff. So you got to provide and you got to do what you say you're going to do. So with that, right, I started to grow my agency, and we hit 7 figures in 15 months when really we hit it honestly in about 9 months, because the personal branding is really what it took off with.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to all these marketing conferences, right? Start getting inundated in that. And all these agency owners like, Adam, like, you've been doing this for less than a year or at a year. I've been doing this for 5-10 years. I can't sell. How are you even generating leads for your own business? And so I start speaking on stage in 2022, just sharing my daily routines. And people's minds are like blown, because they're used to all the smoke screens. Hey, you got to use this automation with this little widget over here. And then you got to bait them with this and then really sell them this on all this different stuff. Right. And so they were just like, that was real, Adam. That's simple. That's easy. And I said, it's always simple and easy, but it's the consistency and the discipline that is what's going to either keep this going or not.
Yes.
And so that was the aha moment in March of 2022 that led to Builders of Authority launching in 2023, where I was like, I don't care if you're a coach or a consultant, if you're another marketing agency, or you're a local contractor, who is typically most of the clients we do digital marketing for, your business will grow if you start posting on social media.
And you're authentic about it, which is where, I get to make 2 worlds collide. My favorite word is authenticity. Adam's got authority. And they interact with each other. One leads to the other when you show up in those ways. So talk to me about how that combination really impacts and I would say even indicates the future success of a business and a brand.
Yeah. So when I was looking at like, hey, how do I start personal branding for a digital marketing agency when there's hundreds of thousands of us? So I took all the marketing agency guru courses of how to get clients and how to build a personal brand. Well, they're all like, you just need to continue showing case studies and screenshots of like, if you have a good client, get a lead or something, like all this stuff. So I'm testing out all that stuff. I'm running all the ads. I'm doing all that stuff. And then I realized like the aha moment is people do business with people. And at the end of the day, if all I'm doing is posting about how I'm the greatest digital marketer ever, people will realize that they're not going to buy from me because all I'm doing is trying to sell them. So I started doing 80 to 90% of my content having nothing to do with digital marketing. So day to life of the entrepreneur, who I am as a husband, now a father. What do I do outside of work? I throw in some jokes and motivation and all the different things. And so people started to realize that, oh, Adam's onto something different than most other marketers that just send me cold DMs and try to pitch me on all this stuff. So people started reaching out to me, and then I started to get clients, and those clients were referring me, and I just built up this inbound lead system that today, since I've gone back full time, like last week, I had 132 leads come in. This week right now, we're at about 20 a day. So we're probably going to pass it. And most agencies, right, if they're lucky, get 3 leads a month. I literally probably haven't looked at my phone, but I probably will have that one. No joking aside.
By the time we're done.
Yeah. So those are the types of things, though, that, again, as I'm teaching people, they're like, Adam, how quick is this going to work? I said, I've been doing this for almost 5 years now, right? Like, you look at me rebuilding this thing, which I think is a great aspect. So if you do, and when you do have a failure of a moment, I looked at it when I relaunched is I'm not starting over. I'm starting from experience. And because I drew that line in the sand when I knew I needed to do it, even though it sucked and I lost everything, I still had my integrity. People still knew who Adam was. And all they wanted to do once I was out on the other side was support me.
Yeah. You had your brand. And it's so funny because when you talk to people that are starting out in a knowledge space, which in the way you approach digital marketing, it's knowledge instead of a service. There is a hesitance to put yourself out there. And I'll tell you, I have stumbled, happy accident that I have come to the exact same conclusion you have, that humans, be a human. That's like I'm going to like paint it through the sky, like be a human, and people will engage with you as a human. Because I have found, like, as a content creator myself, trying to post these long form information based articles because that's what other people in my space do. Crickets. I post a video of me falling down a hill on a mountain bike. Rave reviews, right? And so as soon as I was able to find, and that's part of the key, and we're going to give everybody some advice on that front here. When I was able to find my own authenticity, right, and be okay just being that human, and I put it out there, the connections that came were absolutely amazing, not only from a quantity perspective, but a quality perspective. And you start attracting the right people because you're putting yourself out there in a way that it's going to do just that. It's like the magnetism of just be you versus trying so hard. We try so hard at this. So I'm curious what advice you have for people out there who might be struggling with this, whether it's vulnerability around getting out there authentically, whether they don't know what their own authenticity is or their own personal brand is. Like, how does somebody go and tap into what's unique about them?
Yeah. So I think the first thing you have to go through is, like, you're not going to get it on the first try, and you will have more success doing it the wrong way quicker than doing it the right way long term. And so what I mean by that is, if you try to be somebody that you're not, or you try to go do what everybody else is doing because it's a fad or a trend, you're going to get some traction. But it's going to be false traction because it's going to come crumbling down, which is why you see people go and do this and they go do that. And then they're in one industry and then they're in the next industry, and now they're selling crypto, and now they're doing AI bots. And the next thing, who knows what the next thing is, right? We all know those people. For me, I was, again, hitting my head against the wall. My mentor told me, Adam, do this personal branding thing by being yourself and finding yourself, and do it for 90 straight days. And I guarantee you will sign a client. At day 89 was when I signed that first client. 89.
No way.
80,
No way.
I'm not even kidding yet. So I literally, this guy reaches out to me, and he reached out to me about day 60, and we went back and forth for almost a month. And I'm sitting there in this group telling my mentor, I'm like, hey, it's literally almost there. And he's like, dude, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I didn't believe him, because I'm like, man, I think this guy ghosted me. He reached out to me in literally the middle of the night and was like, hey, Adam, I'm ready to go. And the reason why that ended up happening is we ended up going to a random event in St. Louis, a networking event. And I finally met him there like a week before. So it kind of re-sparked the conversation, but he got a chance to meet me as well versus just going back and forth on Zoom and all that stuff. So I share that story with my clients all the time, but they're like, Adam, like, I need stuff tomorrow. I said, if you don't have 90 days to give anything, whether it's your health and fitness, whether it's your business, whether it's your relationships, if you don't have 90 days to like fully dive into this, you might need to go, and there's nothing wrong with it. Go get a job, go start
get yourself
business.
90 days.
Exactly. Go buy yourself 90 days, go get a loan from somebody, take out a line of credit. Like, people want instant gratification because the environment of this world, whether it's the AI and the technology or all these different things, has pinpointed that that is possible. And again, it's not that it's not possible.
That's normal. I would even take it so far to say that that's normal. And it's not.
Yeah, it's not.
I love when somebody like gets in my little echo chamber with me, or at least makes me feel like half the stuff that I spew out of my mouth actually might be, I don't know, validated by another human. Because I work with a lot of coaches who are either building, like starting their businesses or ready to kind of scale. And I'm like, go do the thing for 90 days. And once you've done it for 90 days, go do it for another 90 days. And so the fact that you just reinforced that made me feel very, very good. But also the idea that like quick results are just quick results. And rarely does that build a foundation of a sustainable, like healthy business. Because in this case, and what we're talking about is it's probably built on false pretenses. And at some point, everybody's going to get hip to that versus trusting yourself and what you authentically have to give to the world, and that the right people will be attracted to it.
Absolutely. And I would say is the other thing is like practicing what you preach in your content is a massive, massive thing. So for example, right, I'm a marketer and I'm telling people, hey, you need to invest in SEO and you need to invest in ads and you need to get Google business reviews and all the different things, right? Well, if I'm not also doing those things in my business, why would I buy from me? And so like at my old agency, we're literally digital marketing St. Louis, the #1 result. I had 125 5-star reviews, and most other agencies that have been around for 10, 15 years, 5 reviews, 10 reviews, 20 reviews, maybe. And so with that, I also started an auto glass company from one of those original 200 websites that I built. And we just celebrated our 4th year in business. We did $1 million last year. And I don't know anything about auto glass, but I started a company through a website and a Google business profile that I literally do for people all day long. And so that also helped kind of spark the growth of like, Adam's not looking at what he's selling just as a digital marketer. He also understands the importance and literally started a company out of thin air with what it is that he's selling to us. And then on the other side, when I'm selling people into my coaching community, I'm selling people, hey, you need to go build a YouTube channel and be a guest on a podcast. They see me living this out, right? So it's leading by example at practicing what you preach. If you're going to tell somebody to go do it and then charge them for that, you better be doing it for yourself.
Well, and even if you just drill that down into the practical of why would I trust somebody to guide me in something that they don't do themselves, because your information may not be updated. I can't tell coaches, hey, you got to go out there and be present on LinkedIn because that's where most of your business is going to come from, if I myself am half-assing it. And so I show up every single day, even when I'm like, this is all the same crap in my newsfeed, and you do it and you totally work through it. And so I feel like the summary of this entire conversation is you can be in business without sacrificing who you are. And in fact, that might just be the secret to success.
Yes.
There you go. That's what happens when authority collides with authenticity. There you go. Adam and Angie, we were meant to be. Adam, how does everybody else out there continue to learn from you? Because I will also put my stamp of approval on, for some of the free resources and what Adam's done on Facebook. It's fun. It has like a mix of like, I get to know who he is. I get some tips. I get some lists of like, hey, you should be on these websites. So how does everybody else tune into you and what you're doing, both as a human and a marketer?
Yeah. So you can go to AdamMcChesney.com. You'll see links to all my different social platforms that are on there. I spend my most time on Facebook. So you can connect with me on Facebook. You'll see Adam McChesney and you'll see the AM logo. We have a free Facebook group where I post daily content in there, tips, strategies, as Angie was mentioning. So you can just type in Builders of Authority into the search bar. And then for your listeners, I have a free course that is built on personal branding that kind of walks people through the identity process of how do I get started? How do I scale it? And then what should I be focused on from a KPI metric standpoint on what do I need to do from a daily basis to reach my goals? So there'll be a link in the show notes for that as well.
Yes. I love actual practical advice, especially when it comes from a good story of you didn't have to be, but it was rock bottom. And now you bounce back and you're better for it. So you don't have to die from failure. You don't have to sacrifice yourself to have a successful business. In fact, it might just be the key to it. And Adam's got fantastic resources to help you do it. So head on over to nomoremondays.info, or if you're listening / watching on LinkedIn, we'll make sure everything is in the comments so you can grab the goodness, build your personal brand. And I'm even going to challenge any of you out there who are employees and job seekers. This personal branding stuff is legit even for you. And while some of the like maybe marketing, business KPI stuff might not be as relevant, if you're struggling to kind of identify your unique value proposition, I wouldn't doubt that there's a few little tools in there for you. So this has been another fabulous episode of No More Mondays. Adam McChesney, thank you so much for joining me. And a little shameless plug. I was on Adam's podcast a week or two ago. So when you go over to his Facebook page, check it out because we had a pretty fabulous conversation that I don't know if it was equal to, but rivals this one. So thanks for having me there. And thanks for being here. I appreciate you and everything you're willing to share with authenticity and authority.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. I will see you next week for another episode of No More Mondays podcast. Have a great week.